Welcome back to the Mother-Daughter Disney Podcast. I'm here with my very lovely mother.
Hi there.
Across. Yeah, so my name's Amanda.
I'm Janette.
And today we are going to do our Haunted Mansion movie review, which we have been looking forward to this movie for quite some time. So I'm excited that we finally got to see it opening weekend. If you were listening to our podcast like weekly, you will have noticed last week I said we were going to skip this week, but it turns out the move went well. I'm all moved in, and that's why we're here. We were able to see the movie opening weekend, and we are recording this Saturday, July 29th, literally the day that we saw the movie. So the way we're going to structure this podcast is a little bit different from our other movie reviews. We're not going to do a super in-depth review of the plots like we've done in other podcasts. We're just going to do kind of an overview and then also talk about what we've noticed from the movie that is the same as the ride, since this is the first movie that we are going to see since doing the podcast that is directly tied to a specific ride in Disney World. And even though we are a Disney podcast, we do focus more on the Disney parks than other Disney stuff in general, but the parks is where the heart is at. Let's be real. Yes. We both love the parks. But all right, so let's just dive right into it. Oh, and real quick, just a disclaimer, of course, this is just us sharing our opinions just for fun. We're not tied in Disney. This isn't sponsored. I mean, like, as if people think that this podcast is sponsored. Let's be real. I do not think this sounds like a sponsored podcast.
And you don't have to agree with us.
I also wanted to give a trigger warning that this podcast episode will mention themes of grief, murder, suicide, and death. So listener discretion is advised. All right, so The Haunted Mansion premiered in theaters on July 28th, 2023. If you think it is weird that a Halloween-themed movie is coming out in July, you would be right. Everyone thinks it's weird. We don't really... Yeah, we have
that didn't even dawn on me.
Yeah, no one knows the exact reasoning why this movie has come out in July and not closer to Halloween in October or September. My opinion, again, this is just my opinion and my own thoughts. I haven't heard this anywhere else or, whatever. I think it's because Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party starts in August, so they wanted the movie to come out before the Halloween party so that they can use the new characters and the music in the Halloween party in August. Again, I don't know if that's true or not. That's just a thought I had of maybe why this movie is coming out so early. So yeah, so I really don't know though. No one...
Well, you could be somebody like me who didn't even realize that it's a Halloween-based movie technically that, just doesn't...
Yeah, it's one of those things where like when you watch the movie, it's not necessarily Halloween. Like the last scene takes place like on Halloween. It's kind of like a reunion. But for the most part, yeah, the movie is not necessarily like a Halloween movie. It's not like Halloween themed or anything like that, but it's it's a ghost type movie that's associated with Halloween. So yeah, why it's coming out in July, no one knows. My thoughts is it's for the Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween party, but again, I don't actually know though. But I have seen people on Twitter like lately making fun of the movie, being like, why is this movie coming out at the end of July? Yeah, don't know. So the movie description from IMDb says, a single mom named Gabby hires a tour guide, a psychic, a priest, and a historian to help exorcise her newly bought mansion after discovering it's inhabited by ghosts. And they classify this movie as a comedy, drama, and family movie, though it is PG-13. So just keep that in mind. I would note that the Haunted Mansion movie, so again, this movie is just called Haunted Mansion. The original Haunted Mansion movie, so to speak, was the Haunted Mansion movie that starred Eddie Murphy. Came out in 2003. So this movie is literally 20 years after the first Haunted Mansion movie. Wow. And the plots are quite different. We're not going to talk about the Eddie Murphy movie. Maybe one day we'll rewatch that movie together.
Seen the thing all the way through.
Yeah, maybe that could be. Maybe in October we'll do that. We'll watch both of them and then do like a compare contrast between the two movies. But yeah, I have seen the Eddie Murphy one a while ago. My mom has never seen it in full, but it's just interesting that it's exactly 20 years later that the new Haunted Mansion movie, so to speak, comes out. So all right, plans for this reboot adoption, because again, there is that original one for the Haunted Mansion began in July 2010. So 13 years ago was when they started thinking about this. And originally Guillermo del Toro was supposed to write and produce the movie, which would have been wild if he did. If you don't know who Guillermo del Toro is, he's known for horror films, especially like psychological thrillers. So I mean, like the tone of the movie would have been drastically different,
yes.
Much darker, much
I would have
scarier.
not been able to see it.
I don't know if we would have seen it, which would have been interesting for Disney to have an actual horror or psychological type thriller movie in, its repertoire. But yeah, so he was intending to write and produce it and stated that the project would take place in a heightened reality rather than in like a real world setting. So in here, it's supposed to take place in quotes in New Orleans, like, as if it's real, but his would have been a heightened reality. If you've seen Guillermo del Toro's previous movies, you probably kind of have an idea of what that means. I have never really seen any of his movies. I've seen some of them, but off the top of my head, I haven't seen any of it, like his super spooky horror stuff, because I don't really watch horror. So then in July 2013, del Toro was no longer attached to the project at all. And this is directly from Wikipedia. After spending years in development hell, Disney officially announced Haunted Mansion in August 2020, with Katie Dippold signed on as the writer for the new screenplay adaptation, and Justin Seaman negotiated as director. They started filming in April 2021, and it was officially confirmed 3 months later. And then again, the primary cast was then casted in, again, 2021 from July to October, with other cast members kind of joining in from time to time. So kind of an interesting story to kind of get to where we are now, like how many years it really takes for these movies to be produced.
It took them a long time, but they did a good job.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, it's just interesting because, again, I don't work in the movie industry. I didn't go to school for film or anything like that. So it's always kind of wild, you know, just to hear the setbacks that certain movies will experience. But again, still got created. So again, the director for this movie is Justin Seaman, and the writer is Katie Dippold. Katie Dippold also wrote Ghostbusters, the 2016 Ghostbusters version with the woman. She's written a few other major movies as well, but I thought Ghostbusters was kind of funny because doing that and then doing Haunted Mansion is just kind of funny. So, all right, so now I'm going to go through who stars in the movie and a brief background on who the characters are, and then we'll do a quick overview of the plot. So I'm just doing the characters first, so you kind of know who the characters are, and then we're just going to do the plot. So Rosario Dawson plays Gabby. You may know Rosario Dawson because she's starred in other Disney films before. Most notably, she will be playing Ahsoka in the Star Wars, TV adaptations in The Mandalorian, as well as her new show that will be coming out soon. We'll get to that later in the podcast. But she plays Ahsoka Tano. Gabby is a single mother who wants to start anew, and she purchases a house to turn it into a bed and breakfast with her son. Then we have Lakeith Stanfield as Ben Matthias. Ben is an astrophysicist who created a camera, again, in the world of Haunted Mansion, who created a camera that they kind of have some like jargon, but essentially it can take photos of ghosts. He kind of uses some like actual jargon in it, but I don't really know anything about ghost hunting. So if you know things about ghost hunting, maybe you know about taking photos of extraterrestrial or something like that. We also learned too that Ben's wife has passed away, and he is struggling to move past his grief from his late wife. Then we have Tiffany Haddish as Harriet. Harriet is a medium or a psychic that can actually speak to ghosts. She's a bit eccentric, but she's called into the Haunted Mansion, like into the plot, so to speak, because she can speak to ghosts. And I say fraud, that's like her own, her persona
own
version
of herself.
She thinks she's kind of a fraud,
thing,
but
right.
yeah, that's the thing too. Everyone who kind of joins all thinks that they're a fraud in who they are, but then you kind of learn that they actually are real and what they're trying to portray, which I kind of liked about that. It's kind of a fun, element to the movie. All right, then we have Chase W. Dillon as Travis. So he is the son of Gabby. I guess I should have put him before Harriet. Sorry to Travis. Sorry to Chase. He's a bit of an outcast at school, kind of a shy kid, and he's grieving his late father as well. So again, him and his mom, they moved down from like up north down to New Orleans, where the movie takes place, again, to kind of start a new life, so to speak. And he is supposed to be 9 years old in the film. Then we have Owen Wilson as Father Kent, who is a priest who specializes in exorcisms, which is quite specific if you think about that. And he was called into the house to perform an exorcist to rid of the ghosts. However, we learn later in the movie, he isn't even a priest. No. He just does this for extra money to exorcise people's houses of fake ghosts.
Exorcise them of their wallets.
I know, right? Then we have Danny DeVito as Bruce. Bruce is a professor who specializes in New Orleans history and ghost history. And he is called in to help determine the history of the house, and also helps do some kind of that like background detective work on, like, again, who owned the house, the previous,
all some of the deaths that happened in the house,
all the different deaths, things like that. So, and we have Jamie Lee Curtis as Madame Leota. So Madame Leota was a medium from years and years ago who became trapped in her own crystal ball after the Hatbox Ghost tricked her into getting trapped in her own crystal ball. And last but not least, we have Jared Leto as the Hatbox Ghost, who plays an evil spirit who was released on accident when William Gracie, who was one of the original owners of I keep saying the Haunted Mansion. The house doesn't really have like a name necessarily. They just refer to it as the house most of the time, but I will refer to the house as the Haunted Mansion. So just so you know. So yeah, William Gracie was a former owner of the Haunted Mansion, and while he was trying to make contact with his late wife, with Madame Leota, they by accident let through the Hatbox Ghost. And then we learn about the history of the Hatbox Ghost as well throughout the movie. All right, and let's go into some of the overall plot. So again, we're not going through all the little details. We're just going to give the overall plot here. So of course, spoiler warning. I guess I should have said that in the beginning of the episode, that there's going to be a spoiler warning that we're talking about the movie. So I would skip ahead if you don't really want to hear anything about this, or maybe after you watch the movie, come back and enjoy it at another time. Or if you're trying to determine if this is a movie you want to take your kids to, I would actually recommend listening, because it is kind of good to know what the movie is going to be about, to determine if your kids are old enough to see it, if they'd enjoy the movie, if they would not enjoy the movie. So good to know some of the overall plot points. So again, mother and son, Gabby and Travis, they purchase the Haunted Mansion in hopes of turning it into a bed and breakfast. And once they arrive, they realize that once you step foot into the house, the ghosts basically immediately start haunting you. And I just want to note here, I told my mom this before, they arrive at the house at night. Like, they literally get out of the car at nighttime. It's like, all right, time to unpack. And I'm like, who arrives at a house that they're going to move into at nighttime?
They're probably traveling a far way because she calls the movers, and the movers say they're 4 hours behind her.
Yeah, but notice the movers never show up now, do they?
Yeah, that is true. Throughout the whole movie, the new movers never do show up.
The movers never do show up. So good for them, girls. They would have been trapped in the house with them. But so first, Gabby calls Father Kent to come exorcise the house. But again, he is a fraud. So he gets Ben involved to take photos of the ghosts in the house. But again, Ben doesn't actually believe in ghosts. He kind of just believes in the technology that he created. And essentially from here, this is when they get their whole motley crew together to learn the history of the house and figure out how to get rid of the ghosts and everything that's happening. But again, one of the key things is that once you step foot into the house, that is when you are starting to be haunted. And the next thing that we're going to go over is all the ties and the similarities between the movie and the ride. But I'll just mention this one here. This is one of my favorite elements of it, is that, you know, at the end of the Haunted Mansion ride, they always say like, and a ghost will follow you home, that you've been here. That's literally what happens to all of them. They step foot in the house, and then when they try to leave, a ghost follows them home.
They go with them, yes.
Yeah, who wants them to return? They all say like, return back to the house,
right,
so they can come back to the house.
Yes.
So everyone has to return, even though none of them really want to return. So, and that's kind of how they all end up together in the house. Over time, they realize most of the ghosts are actually running away from something, and they realize that there's one specific evil ghost there, which we learn, of course, is the Hatbox Ghost. The history of the house, again, was William Gracie was the former owner of the house, and when his wife died of yellow fever, he hired Madame Leota, who was a famous medium or psychic of the day, to come and perform a seance so he could speak with his wife. However, they never made contact with his late wife, as her spirit was at peace and it passed away into like the beyond very peacefully. However, Gracie, again, lost in his grief, kept insisting that they perform the seance over and over again, which in turn welcomed more and more ghosts into the house. Eventually, they welcomed the Hatbox Ghost, who then convinced Gracie to kill himself and trapped Madame Leota into her own crystal ball. I guess I should have said that, like a trigger warning for suicide. Just maybe I'll put that in the beginning of the podcast, just to have some trigger warnings.
Disclaimers, yes.
Yeah. So again, the Hatbox Ghost feeds off grief. So he was really feeding off Gracie's grief when he kind of convinced him to take his own life. So the Hatbox Ghost needs 1,000 souls to free his own ghost form from the confines of the house. And in present day, when Gabby and the whole crew is there, he only needs one more willing soul to do so. So once he gets his final soul, he will be willing soul. That's like the key to it. He'll be able to free himself from the house and then haunt, I guess, like the rest of the world is what it alludes to. All right. So who is the Hatbox Ghost? The Hatbox Ghost is Alistair Crump, who was a rich heir who was ridiculed by his father and then shunned from society as a child. So as a child, he was shunned from society. He kind of went away, came back, and in his adulthood, he wanted to take revenge of all the socialites who mocked him in his childhood by killing them off slowly. So he killed them all off slowly, and eventually it was his own servants who then killed him, and then he swore to take revenge, and everyone, in the afterlife and stuff. The typical ghost thing. Right. So again, the Hatbox Ghost really feeds off from grief. So I kind of mentioned before, but Ben's, again, who is the photographer, like the ghost photographer, so to speak, and really one of the main characters, if I'm being honest.
Right.
His grief from his late wife was what the Hatbox Ghost was really feeding off and hoping would be the final soul. Sort of essentially trying to bait these people into like committing suicide, which is very dark when you realize like what's actually happening. But it doesn't seem dark in the movie.
He's trying to make them believe
he's trying to trick them. Yeah.
He'll see his wife if he does it.
For sure. And so he's feeding off Ben's grief, but then we learn as well that Travis's, who's the young boy, his father had also passed away. So the ghost was also feeding off Travis's grief of missing his father and trying to trick him into thinking he'll be reunited with his father if he goes into the beyond, so to speak. However, Ben realizes it's like just the last minute, and he ends up saving Travis and convinces him to let go of his father, and that it's okay to feel his grief and it's okay to be here, and that his father would want him to live a full life here in like the real world, so to speak, with his mother and with him and everything. So Travis is not going to the afterworld, so to speak, which is good. So, and then with the help of Madame Leota, Father Kent getting some of the other ghosts to turn on the Hatbox Ghost, Travis's bravery as well, they're able to banish the Hatbox Ghost back into the afterlife. And then in kind of like the last little scene, we get Gabby and Travis. They stay with the house with the other ghosts. Kent actually does get ordained as a priest. Harriet has more confidence as a medium. Ben adopts a cat named Tater Tot, which reminds him of his late wife. And literally Bruce, who is Danny DeVito, I guess he just doesn't die because the whole thing...
he just hangs around.
That's what I'm saying, because the whole thing with him was that he had a heart problem, that he was like going to get heart surgery.
Have a heart surgery.
And he almost has a heart attack kind of in one scene, but he ends up being fine, which is kind of funny that it's like, all right, I guess like he didn't have like a closing, he just like didn't die. Like,
didn't die for the whole thing. No, he stayed. Yes.
Yeah, he just ended up living. So.
And obviously they live with the they live with the ghosts because some ghosts just did not want to leave the house. They end up just having a party.
Just really liked it. Yeah. So yes, that's kind of the overall plot, kind of in a nutshell there. So again, now we're gonna just kind of go through the things that we saw in the movie that are like the ride. And let me tell you, there was a lot in the movie that is just like the ride.
They really covered everything.
Yeah.
I mean, they really did cover a lot of what you see in the ride. Is like, you're like, oh, look at that. Oh, look at that. And
yeah, for sure. Like all the ghosts, all the iconic things that you see. I will say too that if you go to Disneyland in California, it is based off the New Orleans Square Haunted Mansion rather than the Liberty Square Haunted Mansion we have in Magic Kingdom. Even like the outside of the house is the New Orleans version. So just keep that in mind if you're looking at it being like, it doesn't look like our Haunted Mansion. It's the Disneyland version in case you've never been to Disneyland. I just say that because I know a lot of our listeners are more Walt Disney World goers than Disneyland goers. So, all right. So here are some the notable lists that we could think of off the top of our heads right after the movie. So the first is the suit of armor. So the suit of armor is fun. So he kind of just moves around. And then Gabby and Travis say that too, that it's like you'll be walking and he'll just be like behind you, or he just like, he has like a lot of jump scares. He just like appears.
Yes.
And then Ben kind of like looks inside the suit of armor. At one point he's like, it's empty in there. But then later on, I didn't mention this in the overall plot, but yeah, Ben does have a seance. I don't really know what it's called, but he kind of goes into the ghost world. Like his spirit leaves his body. He goes into the ghost world and he sees the suit of armor. You can see there's someone in the suit of armor when he's in the ghost world, which I thought was really cool, but you can't see it from like the regular world. We have the endless hallway quite a few times. We are constantly going into the endless hallway where they're running down the hallway.
Yeah, they do that a lot.
Yeah, we also have the candelabra floating at the end of the endless hallway too. That was one of the ones that I really noticed in the beginning of the movie. We have the dueling portraits, the two men when you duel. So in this movie, I really liked how they did it, where they duel in a hallway and they kind of take 7 paces and they turn and they shoot their guns at each other. And if you walk through that part of the hallway at the right time, you'll feel the gunshots, the fake gunshots, of course, like in your sides. Like, and Gabby says it's like extreme pain in both your sides if you walk through this part of the hallway. And that's what it is the two dueling portraits. One of my favorite parts was how they did the stretching room. So the stretching room is towards the end of the movie. So originally when you kind of get there, they're kind of hanging out in the living room type of area, and you immediately notice this is the stretching room.
They say that's the only safe room for them.
Yeah, so they're in the stretching room. And then at the end of the movie, sort of, the Hatbox Ghost kind of takes over that room. He closes off all the doors, closes off all the windows, and now it does become the circular room that we know it to be in the actual version of the Haunted Mansion. What's really cool is that as the room starts stretching, the bottom of the actual room itself transforms into what is at the bottom of the actual portraits. So we have the crocodile, the dynamite, and the quicksand. And then the fourth portrait is that lady sitting on the grave of her late husband. So there's nothing really for that one because I guess it would have just been a graveyard. There was no quick thing at the bottom for it to get them. But like one of the first things that Ben, one of the characters, he's falling into the quicksand, he's getting out. They have a crocodile chasing them. The dynamite,
floating around in the water.
is about to go off and stuff. But I thought that was so clever how they did that. I thought that was really cool that's how they did the stretching room. And as they're climbing up, one of the portraits says like grab the gargoyles as they're stretching, and then they're climbing up to get to the rafters of the roof and everything. And yeah, I just thought that was a really cool scene of how they did it. And again, I just think it's funny that the lady on the grave, there's just nothing
she gave them the hint.
So,
the lady on the grave, what she does, she gives them the hint on how to get out of the room, to grab onto the gargoyles.
And the girl on the crocodile too, that's on like above the crocodile, she also helped a little bit. So we also have 2 scenes, well, I guess it's the same scene, but it's just 2 instances where Harriet, the medium, she's kind of giving a seance, and then suddenly the Hatbox Ghost decides to deposit her from the house. So as she's sitting in her chair, he kind of whirls the chair around with her in it and like swoops her out of the house like she's running through the house. And you realize it looks just like the Dune buggies, the way she's going through the house. It's funny because it's one of those things where like if that was happening in like with different music or different lighting, it would be very scary. But the way they do it is quite comedic.
Yes, it was funny.
Yeah, and then Danny
DeVito too.
Yeah, he immediately runs in the house and he also gets Dune buggied right out of the house too. But I kind of liked how they did that because it was a nod to how you ride the ride in the actual Haunted Mansion. We also have a quick scene of the stairs going kind of in the multiple directions in one of those rooms. So at one point when Ben is in again that like ghost world, he's opening the doors, kind of traveling around, and he sees the stairs going all different directions.
Right. They also had the clock with the 13.
Yes, they had the clock, with
the crazy hands.
Yep.
When it hits a 12, it's just like the hands go round and round and round. They also had a scene with that too, with the clock.
About the clock. They do have the clock. They also have the marble busts as well, and you see the marble busts in the living room a few different times, and then
with their face expressions. Yeah,
they kind of follow you around, and like Gabby points out as well, as like, they usually follow you around. She said it's very creepy, and then they're kind of in the background though of like a lot of the movie again because a lot of the movie takes place in that living room area. They also have the bride in the attic. So at one point they realize that Madame Leota's crystal ball may be hiding somewhere in the house. So as soon as they start going to the attic, I was thinking to myself, I was like, wow, that's normally where the bride is. And so as soon as he gets up there, that is exactly where the bride is, and she does go attacking him with her little hatchet. And you do see the portraits that you see in the ride as well of her with the pearls
disappear.
With the pearls, and as the husbands are disappearing. But it's okay because Ben does get Madame Leota's chest, and he does get out of the attic, of course. We also have the party in the dining room. That's more towards the end of the film, but yeah, that's also, I mean, like always kind of a fun scene. That's often people's favorite scenes too. The one thing that they didn't have was the ghost with the legs sticking out from under the table. I was really hoping we see like some guy under the table, you know? But yeah, no, they didn't have that. Or if they did have it, they cut it from the movie. But that was one of my favorite ghosts though in Haunted Mansion. We also have the traveling ghosts too. So at one point when they're kind of leaving the house, again, at the end of our ride, at least in Magic Kingdom, we have the 3 traveling ghosts that kind of, you know, sit in your doom buggy and, you know, do something funny, you know, at the very end of the ride. So we see those 3 ghosts. You see a lot of the ghosts that are in the ride in the movie as well.
In the graveyard.
The traveling ghosts, a lot of the graveyard ghosts, the man and the dog outside of the cemetery, they were also in there, also as ghosts. All the portraits in the endless hallway, like the cat lady and the mariner, they are also in the movie as well. You see them. We also have the organ playing itself, which is really cool. We get the organ twice actually throughout the movie. We had Mandy and Leota, of course, in the seance room, and then the ghost that a ghost will follow you home. I think that was my favorite detail, was that a ghost will follow you home, and that's exactly what happens. They can leave the house during the day and like do stuff during the day, like they're not trapped fully in the house. So when they go, the ghosts go with them. Essentially, is what happens. So for Ben's character, they gave him the captain, the mariner's ghost, so water. You can kind of see the water, so it's a bit more obvious that there's like a ghost following him. So, and in the very beginning of the movie too, they had the famous line that there's 999 haunts, but there's always room for one more.
Well, yeah, it was funny because they realized that there was 933 ghosts, and then 63 people were killed by the Crump, whatever his name was.
Yeah. I think 66 people were killed.
66.
Yeah.
And then that's what left one left.
Yeah, and that's
they
realized they only need one more. Again, one more willing soul.
So they bring all those details of the math of how they got to the 999 ghosts.
Yep. So that's kind of a lot of the things that we noticed that were the same in the movie and in the ride. When you're watching it, it's just a lot of fun just to see like what is the same and the things that, like all the like little details. The detail is always the best part. Let's be real.
If you've been to Disney World and you've been to the Haunted Mansion ride, well then obviously it's very, very interesting because you can match everything up.
Yeah.
Even if you haven't been on the ride, the movie itself just lends to just being funny. It was funny. It was touching. It was, you know, it was a good movie even without being able to match it up.
Which kind of leads us into our next part. Is this movie suitable for kids? So I would say overall, yes. It's quite spooky. You know, it is the Haunted Mansion. However, I would say if your child can do the ride, they could probably watch the movie. So I guess that's like a good way to say it. If you think your kid may be a bit too scared to go on the ride still, that's totally fine. It is spooky, you know, it's going to be scary. Then I would say maybe hold off on the movie for a little bit and then, you know, show them the movie when they can do the ride. There's nothing in the movie that's drastically different or new from the ride.
I think the Hatbox Ghost is probably the scariest.
Yeah.
Because he's not in the regular ride yet. They're putting him in.
He's adding him now.
But his character is kind of scary.
Yeah. Hatbox Ghost. And I thought the scariest scene was the attic scene with the bride. Because that's a very specific scene where, well, that's what I was going to say too. There are themes, of course, of grief, murder, and suicide within the movie. So if those themes maybe wouldn't be suitable for your child, obviously, you know, don't have them watch this.
No, because it does touch on those subjects.
Yeah. So for instance, in the attic, that is the one scene where it's very obvious that she's trying to kill Ben
him with an axe.
with an axe. And it is, I would say, the most intense scene because it's very focused on that. There are other scenes that are quite scary, but it's cut with other things going on.
She doesn't get him, obviously.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, he
There's
survives,
no blood in
fine.
this movie. That's the difference.
And it has a happy ending. No one gets hurt.
This is not a blood, and nobody gets hurt. Nobody, you know, whatever. I am not a fan of anything scary at all. I don't like zombies. I don't like ghosts. I don't even like the music. Yeah. If I hear music from a movie like that, I have to cover my ears. But I have to say, I was on the ride. I know what the ride has. I know what the ride entails. And I agree that if you can handle the ride, then you can handle the movie to a certain extent.
The movie does have a happy ending. Again, no character who is alive dies in the movie. No. Everyone stays. I mean, like, obviously the ghosts are all dead, but, you know, no one dies.
Nobody dies. Nobody gets killed.
Yeah, like the child Travis, he does have moments of like peril, you know, but he's always fine in the end. So, you know, nothing actually happens to him. Yeah, some of the scary scene was that attic scene, and then some of the Hatbox Ghost scenes were a little bit scarier. Nothing too crazy.
Some of the ghosts are kind of creepy. I mean,
some of the
when
ghosts
you're going
are creepy
through the
to
ride,
look at,
you don't see the detail on the ghosts because you're moving and you're going and the ghosts are floating and they're doing and whatever. Some of the ghosts that Owen Wilson was dealing with were kind of creepy.
Yeah, they look a little creepy, a little bit scary. So keep that in mind. Maybe try to look up photos beforehand just for yourself.
Some of them were a little creepy. If you have, you know,
I would say there's no long scene where you're just staring at the ghost for like a long period of time. There are jump scares too. It's like, you know, some minor jump scares. Again, nothing I think like
they weren't even that scary. They were just jumps that you didn't expect things to happen.
ending.
Yeah.
So now it's definitely say at your own discretion to decide. But I would say the movie is not classified as a scary movie or a horror movie. It is classified as a family comedy type of movie. And there's a lot of comedic relief throughout the whole, even like during the scary scenes, there's still like funny things happening to kind of keep it light.
Especially with Danny DeVito.
Yeah. Like I forget who, Katie Dippold. I think the way she wrote the movie was very well done in the fact that it is spooky, it is scary, it's Halloween, but it's not over the top. It's still suitable for, a kid who can handle Haunted Mansion or something. Just keep in mind that the themes of grief, murder, and suicide, like those themes, may not be suitable for every family, depending on what's going on in your family. That's totally fine. Again, maybe just look it up just to make sure, that would be okay for the kiddos to see. So there is a happy ending. So as with most Disney films, there is a happy ending. All right, so let's go into our favorite scenes. So what was your favorite few scenes?
Well, like I said, I thought the favorite scenes of mine was when they do the background on the characters. Like I said, I'm not one for ghosts and things like that, but I have to admit that when they did the flashbacks for the main character with him and his wife, and how they tell the story of how each of them has come through their grief or what's happened to them and how they got there, that was my favorite scenes of the movie because it really did give the movie depth.
Well, yeah, because it's all the character development. So it's like that's all stories are driven by characters. So I think they did well giving all the giving there were a lot of main characters.
It gave the movie. It wasn't just a slapstick comedy of running through the haunted mansion or trying to do this or trying to do that. It gave the movie a lot of depth of what the characters were going through and why they did what they did to help out and do what they were doing.
Yeah, like each character kind of had something from their past that was tying them to what they were doing in the present and why this moment kind of mattered to them. So
and how it got them to the end where they all got more self-confidence in themselves and they really helped each other.
Yeah, it's almost like in The Wizard of Oz when they were all going to the wizard to like gain
they
something.
all support each other.
They all realized like that it was all within themselves the whole time.
And the support of their friends.
Yeah, to believe in themselves to a certain extent. So no, I do like that a lot. That was a really fun like message from the movie when you kind of get to the end there. One of my favorite scenes is when Ben goes into the ghost realm and he sees all the ghosts for the first time. So I do think that was really fun to see. Just that idea too of like I don't know if there's any I don't know any real mediums in real life, I should say. So I've never been to it. I've never really been to like a real psychic or a real medium. So I think it's interesting if people can disassociate from their bodies and go into that spirit world like that. I think that'd be very interesting. I've never tried it myself. Don't really know anyone who's ever done it before. I'm not saying that people can or cannot do it. Not gonna be a hater here or anything like that.
No.
But it was really interesting when he finally got there and he met Gracie, like again, the man who was grieving his wife and he's also grieving his own wife. And, how they connected a little bit because of that and how Gracie really wasn't a bad guy, that he was just so lost in his own grief that he made a mistake. And unfortunately, the mistake affected other people. So, but I really like that overall scene. I thought that was kind of fun. So, all right, who is your favorite character?
Harriet.
Yeah, Harriet, the medium. Yeah.
I love the medium. She was funny. She was just her reactions to certain things and the way she handled everything, I thought was,
It's funny because you could say she's a comedic relief character, but honestly, all the characters were comedic relief
they all
characters.
had their own comedic
like they
relief.
all had their funny parts.
She was funny. Her personality was just funny.
Like honestly, one of the funniest parts was when they first get to Danny DeVito's character. Again, he's a professor, so he's at school. They're like, all right, let's go out to eat. They show up at this Japanese hibachi restaurant, and he's wearing this like clear raincoat, this clear hat, and I'm like, what are you wearing to this restaurant? Like you look ridiculous.
There was no reason for it. You're just looking at it going, okay, why is he wearing
it was just
that?
like out of nowhere. It never comes up in
because
context.
He's just crazy. Danny DeVito's a little bit of a crazy guy.
But it's just so funny. So they all have moments like that where things just happen. You're like, where did this come from? It's just like, all right. So I said my favorite character was Kent, who was the priest, who was Owen Wilson. So again, he had a lot of also like just funny moments of just like doing random stuff or just saying things at like weird times while being like, all right, well, it is how it is type of thing. So, but no, I thought he was really great. Honestly, all the characters were really great.
Yeah, they were all good.
Yeah, again, they all had, pretty good depth. Again, backstories. They all had messages. So, all right. And what is your 5-star rating out of the movie?
I give it 5 stars. I thought it was very entertaining.
Yeah, I would say 5 stars. I think we've given every movie so far 5
I
stars.
know, well, we have.
Reviewed,
but, I hate to say it, but I mean, I think Disney finally, stepped up to the plate. I mean, between Little Mermaid and this, I thought both movies
and
were
Elemental
just...
too. Yeah.
I think that, even Elemental. I think that the casting was good. I think the people that they've put in their characters have been good. I think the writing is good. It's not like I walk out of there and say, okay, that was a waste of my time because it was just stupid. Their depth, like I said, giving the depth behind the character and just giving the themes that they've given them. Like Little Mermaid, they just did a remake. So whatever it was, but they did a really good job on the remake.
Yeah, for sure.
They didn't just slap it together.
And good casting as well.
Yes, they're casting it. I got to tell you, the Little Mermaid, she was perfect for the part. I got to give her credit. Even all the other characters too, but her character was just perfect. And like I said, I don't go to that many movies. I mean, the last 2 movies I've been to, 3 movies, because Amanda said, "Oh, we have to go see the movies and do the podcast."
Meanwhile, I did mention at one point that we weren't going to do Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny, that we weren't going to see it. I actually did end up going to see it.
Yeah, she went to see it. I have no want to see.
We won't do a podcast episode on it.
I have
but
no
would
want
say
to see Indiana Jones.
It was a good movie as well, especially if you're into the whole Indiana Jones franchise. It's a great send-off for the overall franchise, but it was a good movie. But I agree. I think Disney has done really well creating.
They've stepped up to the plate.
Movies.
I have to give them credit. They really did, because some of their movies have been flops. I mean, some of their movies that they've done, you say, "Oh, okay, they're not that great." This one, that one. This, I have to say, the last few movies, they've really stepped up to the plate and did what they needed to do.
Oh, this one's great, and I think this movie was so fun, especially if you are a big fan of the parks in general. That it's like, it's
and if
so
you're
fun.
a fan of the Haunted Mansion.
Yeah, I know there's so many Haunted Mansion diehards out there. We're not Haunted Mansion diehards.
No, we go on it all the time, but we enjoy
I would say
it.
I'm more of a Pirates of the Caribbean diehard before Haunted Mansion, which I do love the Pirates of the Caribbean movies as well. Even though those ones are definitely darker movies, those ones I would not recommend for children. I would say be a little bit.
No,
they're
even I don't like past the first one.
Yeah, some of those are darker.
Some of those characters,
some of the themes are a little bit darker too.
Yeah, they're a little
creepy. The movie
creepy
itself
for me.
is like actually darker as well. So yeah, those ones are definitely more of adult type of teenage to adult type films. But this movie I think could definitely be suitable for kids. But yeah, just do some background research.
Yeah, there weren't a lot of young children in our movie, I have to say.
Weren't, no.
A lot of older people, maybe teenagers, a couple of teenagers and stuff.
I think it's because a lot of families are nervous about bringing their kids to Haunted Mansion.
I don't think there were a lot of young children in our movie.
And I think that's fair. I feel like it's a movie that you could always, once it goes on Disney Plus, for instance, you could start streaming and decide for yourself. Can my kid handle this or not?
And then watch it.
But yeah, I'd definitely say, as a blanket statement, if they can go on Haunted Mansion the ride, they could probably watch the movie. If they're not ready for the ride, then I would hold off with the movie. I think that's perfectly fine. So again, I still even find the ride to be a bit spooky sometimes. So it's a little bit scary if you really think about the Haunted Mansion.
Right.
So,
well,
overall, we both love the movie. So I recommend going to see it if you're an adult, obviously. If you're just a fan of the ride, fan of the parks. I love the movies that are based off the rides, honestly, especially specifically off the rides. Like we watched Jungle Cruise, that just went straight to Disney Plus a few months ago now. But yeah, another great movie as well. So those ones are always kind of fun. So all right, yeah. So I guess we will transition now into some Disney news. So for this Disney news episode, I am just going to do what's coming new to Disney Plus in August, and then I'm going to save some other Disney news for our next podcast episode because we are pre-recording a little bit. So I also realized too, I did not do what's coming to Disney Plus in July because I totally forgot about it. So sorry about that. Totally forgot to do this in July. So we're going to do it for August. So here's everything that is coming to August. I am getting this information from whatsondisneyplus.com, and I also am going to categorize them into a few different categories rather than just going through like chronologically when they're coming out. So for the big releases, there was a lot of big releases coming to Disney Plus. So first up, we have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 on August 2nd, which is pretty exciting. I never actually saw this movie in theaters. It came out a few months ago now. So Guardians of the Galaxy. We have Rio 2 on August 4th. I didn't even know there was a Rio 2, if I'm being really honest. I also
didn't even know there was a 1.
Yeah,
that's the one with the birds?
Yep, yeah.
Okay.
I didn't know Rio was owned by Disney. I thought Rio was DreamWorks, so I was kind of surprised that Rio 2 was going. So we have High School Musical, the musical, the series, final season coming out on August 9th. So now a lot of people are really big fans of High School Musical, the series. Such as my best friend Shannon. She loves that TV show.
I like them. I like the movies.
Yeah, but yeah, I've never seen the TV show personally, but I know a lot of people are big fans of the TV show, so that is coming out on August 9th. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is coming out on August 11th. I think the first one is also on Disney Plus too, which means that Disney's really acquiring all Spider-Mans to be on Disney Plus right now. We have Star Wars Ahsoka starting on August 23rd. This is one I'm super pumped for. So if you're a fan of the Star Wars TV shows, Ahsoka, which is going to be focused on Ahsoka Tano, who Rosario Dawson plays, who again, she was in the Haunted Mansion movie too, is starting August 23rd. The first 2 episodes will drop, and then the episodes will drop weekly, until the season is over. So super excited for Ahsoka. This is what I've been looking forward to for so long now. So very excited. And then last but not least, in the big releases section, I have the original Cinderella, the 4K restored version is coming to Disney Plus. So before there was no Cinderellas on Disney Plus at all. So now the Cinderella cartoon version will be on. I am still waiting for the live action version to be on because that is my favorite live action movie.
That's the one I didn't see. I'd like to see that.
I do own it on DVD and Blu-ray, so I can watch it whenever I want to. But yeah, so the cartoon version is coming though. All right, for National Geographic, first up we have Farm Dreams. Farm Dreams is a 6-part documentary series following farmer, forager, indie aficionados as she connects aspiring farmers with experts in order to help them live out their dream of living in nature on their own terms. So sounds very fun. I feel like that's me. I have a farm dream. I would love to live. I would love to live on the farm.
No, she wants to own a cow.
I know, right? Then we have Wicked Tuna. Season 12 is coming out. I did not know there were 12 seasons of Wicked Tuna, so quite a successful show that I have never watched an episode of. However, one of my sorority sisters has worked on the production of Wicked Tuna.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I always think
I
about
like
that.
the National Geographic shows.
Yeah. So we also have Explorer Lost in the Arctic. This is Sir John Franklin set off from England in 1845 with 2 ships and 129 men to be the first to navigate the Northwest Passage, a new trade route over the top of the world, when Franklin's ships vanished without a trace. So I guess it's going to be kind of a documentary or maybe what happened to him in the ship. And that last for National Geographic is We Rewind the 90s. Celebrities and eyewitnesses and pop culture pundits relive the most memorable moments of the decade. So something all about the 90s, which I guess suppose will be interesting. All right, in the ABC category, we have the 2nd season of The Wonder Years. So The Wonder Years is a coming-of-age story of a 12-year-old black boy in Montgomery, Alabama in the late 1960s, as told by his adult self. I'm pretty sure this is a remake show, right? So
Think so.
yeah, so this is the 2nd season, but the show itself was a remake from like an older show,
Yes, I
also
think
called
so.
The Wonder Years.
Yes.
All right, there is a lot of Disney Junior coming out. Disney Junior every month has so much content, which don't get me wrong, I realize that like Disney is like for children. Sorry, it's starting to storm outside. So me and my mom were looking outside being like, whoa, it's starting to look real dark and stormy
it's
out
really
there.
cool because there's a ray of sunshine
Yeah, I
coming
see
through
that
the
too,
trees.
so it looks
it's like
creepy.
a golden
Yeah.
sun coming through, and the trees are blowing. It's turning black outside. So
right?
a lot of
Kinda
drama
wild,
going out while
yeah.
we're talking.
But yeah, so much Disney Junior. And again, I'm always surprised how much Disney Junior there is. But again, I shouldn't be surprised because again,
No,
Disney is
because
for
you know,
kids.
I mean, that's
But-
where the kids are busy
Right.
watching all that
right,
stuff.
I'm going to breeze through all these. I won't go into the descriptions, but I'll just mention them. So first up, we have Star Wars Young Jedi Adventures, KIF Season 1. We have Chibi Tiny Tales Shorts. We have Dino Ranch Season 2, Disney Junior Wonderful World of Songs, which is going to be like a sing-along type of show. We have Lego Disney Princesses, The Castle Quest, which is actually going to feature most of the Disney princesses in Lego form.
Okay.
We have Chip and Dale Park Life Season 2 and Kaya and the Kamoja Heroes Season 1. So again, lots of Disney Junior shows coming.
I love the sing-along ones when you were kids.
All right, and then my last category I just have is other fun stuff. It's other things like Disney Channel and other like random shows or like cartoons that didn't really fit into the other categories. So we have How Not to Draw Season 1, which is going to be a tutorial parody series on animation, like how to draw animation, but it's supposed to be a parody, so it looks like it's going to be like a comedy type show. We have Hamster and Gretel Season 1. So gifted with amazing superpowers, Gretel and her pet hamster decide to join hands with her teenage brother to protect their city from evil supervillains.
Okay.
So kind of a fun little comedy cartoon. The Villains of Valley View Season 2. Furious but insulting her family, Amy attacks Onyx, the leader of the supervillains. In an attempt to save themselves, Amy and her family live in a concealed town in Texas. And then we also have Pretty Freaking Scary Season 1, which is teenager Frankie Rip has seemingly perfect life until she dies. And after debating the Grim Reaper, she is allowed to return home to attend middle school, accompanied by underworld guardians Pretty and Scary. So again, I suppose it's a cartoon show. It doesn't actually look that scary, you know? So nothing
Subject
too crazy.
itself is scary. Okay.
Yeah, but it's like a Disney Channel show though, so you know. And then last but not least, what is coming is a bunch of old Disney cartoons. So there are a lot of old, like those old tiny
they've been doing
ones.
that. Yeah, they're bringing back the
So
old
we
cartoons.
have Barnyard Olympics from 1932, Donald's Cousin Gus from 1939, Donald's Nephews coming from 1938, The Flying Jalopy in 1943, Goofy and Wilbur 1939, and Mickey's Steamroller 1934. So again, a bunch of the old-timey
No, they're still
cartoons.
way before my time. Thank God.
From the 30s and 40s. So yeah, but that is what's coming to Disney Plus in August. So very exciting, lots of new releases. So definitely looking forward to some of those big releases, some of those big movies. Of course, Ahsoka is going to be the one that I'm really looking
Yeah, that's
forward
one
to.
I don't watch Star
So
Wars.
can't wait for
as
that.
we know.
So. All right. So in our next category is our Disney birthdays. And we have no Disney birthdays this week. No Disney birthdays. Okay. However, my mom and dad's wedding anniversary is on August 3rd. So that's right. Happy anniversary to
32 years.
To my parents. That will be later this week. So yeah, happy anniversary. Thank you guys doing anything on August 3rd?
August 3rd.
Well, are you guys doing anything?
We're going out to eat.
I'm just going out to eat.
Yeah, we're going to try a new restaurant here on the shore down by the water.
Yeah. All right. Well, that brings us to our last little section of the podcast, which is our Disney memory. So do you have a Disney memory?
My Disney memories are sing-alongs because actually when you were little, that we had the VHS tapes that were the sing-alongs, and they had one that was like going down Main Street, which I absolutely loved to watch with the kids. And they had the Grim Grinning Ghosts on it. They did a Halloween one where it was Grim Grinning Ghosts and, Halloween kind of cartoons and stuff like that. So that brings back, when we were Haunted Mansion, brings back memories of the Grim Grinning Ghosts and all the things that we used to watch. Of course, Amanda was one of those children who did not want to go on the Haunted Mansion ride for a while.
We went through really scared of it.
Yes, we went through a phase where nope, not going on that.
Yes, it's a long phase.
Yes, but those were my memories.
Spooky. It's a spooky ride for sure.
Yes, but the sing-alongs made it fun. Like when you saw the Grim Grinning Ghosts on the sing-alongs, it was fun on the little VHS tape that they used to have. Yeah, I miss those VHS tapes. They were fun.
No, they are fun. Well, there's still sing-alongs, on Disney Plus.
That's what I said when you were just talking about the sing-alongs. I love the sing-alongs.
Yeah. So yeah, I know. For my Disney memory, I had a few in mind, but I guess one of them, is the fact that when I was little, I was very scared of the Haunted Mansion. I didn't like to tell anyone I was scared of the Haunted Mansion though, because I felt bad as I got a little bit older, where I knew I shouldn't really be scared of it anymore, but it did still scare me. And I remember being on it one time and just like I was always really scared of like random scenes, and I think I would just keep my eyes closed or covered for most of the ride. Like I feel like it took a long time for me to actually watch the ride, so to speak, being on it, because I would just keep my eyes covered. And I knew not to close my eyes, because they often say when you're watching horror films or something like that, not to close your eyes, because then when you close your eyes at night to go to bed, you'll hear the sounds of whatever it was.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so you don't want to close your eyes. Instead, they say to cover your eyes, but to keep your eyes open. So I used to do that a lot, that I would always cover my eyes. But yeah, for a long time, I used to do that until I finally was like, oh, it's just a little spooky, just a little spoopy, But, we all have different thresholds of fear.
That's right.
Mine is very low. I get scared very easily. So, and there is no shame in that. If you or your child or someone else in your family has a low tolerance for fear, I in the same way.
It's not worth pushing them.
Yeah, no, definitely not. Everyone eventually, gets over.
Of course, there was this time when Amanda was afraid to sit on Santa Claus's lap. We have a picture of me sitting on Santa Claus's lap with Amanda on my knee.
The characters or something like that. That's a common one too. I know a lot of people who are scared of Santa
and
at first.
It's a phase. It gets outgrown.
Or at least you hope so. I mean, I guess some people are still scared of Santa. I mean, like the concept is a bit like this random old dude,
strange
comes in,
man,
watching you when you sleep, watching you get older, sneaking in the middle of your house at night.
So everybody has their triggers.
No, yeah, for sure. But yeah, so thanks so much for listening to this week's podcast. Make sure you follow us on social media. We are Spaceship Earth Design everywhere. I will also have it linked in the description, since we may rebrand one day. So if our handles ever change, we'll have it linked below. Make sure to give us a review and like on YouTube or on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you are currently listening, because the Mother-Daughter Disney podcast is available on all podcast platforms, again, also including YouTube. And let us know if you're going to go see the Haunted Mansion movie and what did you think of it. I will have a dedicated Instagram post on our Instagram, so make sure to comment below that Instagram post to let us know what you thought of the movie. If maybe you're waiting to hold off on the movie, if you have certain family members you want to see it with, or if you're just waiting for it to go to streaming, you just don't have time. It is the summer. Everyone's kind of busy right now in the summer. Again, if you saw it, like, what were your favorite parts? Like, did you notice certain parts that were similar to the ride? Everything about that. So yeah, let us know. We'd love to hear. And yeah, thanks so much for listening.
Yep. Bye. If you go to the movie, I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see you real soon. Bye.